creepypasta, horror stories based on the act of copypasta, or copying a story or text and pasting it somewhere else on the internet. This digital game of telephone has led to most elaborate group efforts in creating media. For the landscape of horror, it's created some of the most spine-tingling tales, as well as a lot of poorly written ones. Thankfully, for tonight, we're looking at the former. Good evening, travelers. My name is Zenonaki, and in tonight's episode of Crypto Crossing, we're taking a look at the iconic Slenderman and the mysterious Hachishakusama to see which of these tall, pale child abductors is deadliest. For the uninitiated, Crypto Crossing is the show where we look at who these monsters are, what they can do, and finally discuss why one of them would be the other. Okay, so normally during this segment I show fan art of the match sent in by viewers, mainly because I think stuff like this is super rad. I wanted to highlight this thumbnail sent in to me for this match, particularly because it predates the pilot of this series itself. This fan thumbnail was created back when Crypto Crossing was just an idea I was pitching to people online, long enough ago that I have no way of tracking down and crediting who made it and who sent it to me. So, whoever you are from way back when, I hope you enjoy seeing this episode finally come to life. And if anyone else watching wants to send in fan art or thumbnails to be featured, the best way to do so is through Discord. Link is in the description. Who is the Slenderman? Love him or hate him, you all know him, or at least some version of him anyway. Originally an obscure creepypasta turned overnight internet sensation thanks to a cheap indie game and the YouTube algorithm. Now seen in countless games, movies, and memes, the Slenderman has become the faceless face synonymous with creepypasta and internet horror. With all that in mind, it's easy to get lost in the modern sea of mediocre media surrounding him. So for this episode, I'll be peeling back the layers and looking strictly at the original mythos many aren't so familiar with. It all started in 2009 when the Something Awful internet forum hosted a Photoshop contest that asked users to create something paranormal. User Eric Knudsen, under the pseudonym Victor Surge, submitted a pair of black and white images with the following text attached. We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them. But its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time. One of two recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken on the day in which 14 children vanished, and for what is referred to as the Slenderman. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence. These simple entries were just the tip of an iceberg that was waiting to be created. June of 2009 to February of 2010, many more pictures and entries would be created to expand the lore of the Slenderman. There's a wide variety of supposed encounter types, which indicate his presence all around the world, with some stories dating back many centuries, suggesting the Slenderman is of ancient origins. One of my favorite stories reported demonstrating that truly nowhere is safe.
Po.
Who is Hachishakusama? Meaning the 8-foot-tall woman, or more formally, Miss 8 feet, Hachishakusama is a malevolent spirit or demon of unknown origins said to haunt some rural areas of Japan. Sporting a large sun hat and white dress, this impossibly tall woman is said to stalk unsupervised children for days before finally killing them. The nature and setting of this story always led me to believe she was a genuine figure of folklore or legends, like some other spooky ladies from Japan. But she is in fact a creepypasta of recent origin. The original story came on August 26, 2008, the Japanese site 2chan, from user Befotep0. The story unfolded in a thread of 9 posts. It's been translated into English a few different ways, but it usually goes something like this.
Po.
The last time I saw my grandparents was the summer of 1998. I was 8 years old. My grandparents lived in a remote village far away from the big cities, so my parents took to some sightseeing while I stayed at my grandparents' house. It was a particularly hot day and there wasn't a ton to do for fun, so I simply laid on the grass in the backyard while Grandma and Grandpa were inside. That's when I heard a strange noise coming from behind the nearby hedges.
Po.
So the whole yard was enclosed by these very tall hedges, and I could see a hat poking up from behind the other side. It was wide, like a straw hat or a sun hat. It moved along the hedge until it came to a gap between the hedges, where I could see it was being worn by a very tall woman. She smiled and walked away without saying anything. I went inside to tell my grandparents about what I saw. At first they didn't really think anything of it, until I mentioned the sound she made.
Po.
My grandparents froze when they heard me. My grandfather grabbed my arm and said, "This is very important. Must tell us exactly how tall was she?" "As tall as the hedges around the yard," I replied. Grandpa asked me a lot more questions, like what I was doing, did she see me, where did she go, and I tried my best to answer them. Grandpa rushed into the other room to make a phone call, then he told us he was going out and would be right back. I desperately asked him to tell me what was going on. With a solemn expression, he said, "You've been liked by Hachishakusama."
Po.
I asked my grandmother what was going on, and who this Hachi whatever was. Grandma told me not to worry, that Grandpa would do something. She went on to tell me that Hachishakusama is dangerous and has haunted the area for a very long time. Long ago, she was captured by some Buddhist monks who managed to trap her inside a building using these 4 statues of someone called Jizo, placed in each of the 4 directions. But somehow, Hachishakusama escaped. Her last appearance was 15 years ago. My grandma said most people who saw her were destined to die within a few days.
Po.
Finally, Grandpa returned, and he had a strange old woman with him. I was taken upstairs, and all the windows were covered by newspapers. There was a statue of Buddha in the middle of the room, and in each corner was a bowl of salt. There was also a bucket, for if I had to use the bathroom. The strange woman explained to me that the sun would be setting soon, and it was very important I remained inside until 7 the next morning. Don't open the door for anybody, for Grandma and Grandpa will not try to disturb you. I was told it was life or death. I had to follow these instructions exactly, and if anything went wrong, I was to pray to Buddha. I was very scared, alone in my room. I had a TV to distract me, but it didn't help much. Eventually, I fell asleep. I was awoken around 1 a.m. by something tapping on the outside of the window. I couldn't see what. I convinced myself it was a branch or something, and eventually it stopped. That's when I heard my grandpa on the other side of the door. "Are you okay in there? If you're scared, you don't have to stay in there alone. I can come in and keep you company." At first I felt a rush of relief, but then I froze. Even though it sounded just like him, I worried it wasn't my grandpa. "What are you doing? Open the door. Now." I knew it wasn't my grandpa. I looked and saw the bowls of salt were starting to turn black. I desperately started praying, and the voice outside changed.
Po, po, po.
The tapping on the window continued and wouldn't stop. I cried and prayed for the rest of the night. Eventually, it was morning, 7:30, safe for me to come out. I carefully exited and was greeted by my grandmother, who was in tears. She was so happy to see that I was all right. Downstairs, I saw my mom, dad, and grandpa, who had hurried me outside. I was put in a large van that was packed with other people. My grandpa got in a car ahead of us, while my parents were in the one behind us. I was told to keep my head down and my eyes shut. We started driving, and I heard the noise again.
Po, po, po.
I couldn't help but look. I saw her walking beside us. She was keeping pace with us, even though we were driving pretty fast. She bent down and looked in at me. I screamed. The others made me put my head back down. You could hear her tapping on all the windows. Eventually, it all stopped. I was told we were safe now. We had escaped Hachishakusama. We left for home right away. That was the last time I visited my grandparents. I was forbidden to come back for my own safety. I couldn't even return for my grandpa's funeral when he'd passed. More recently, I received a call from my grandma. She told me she was dying of cancer. She asked me to come visit while I still had the chance. Of course, I asked if it was safe. I asked if Hachishakusama would still come for me. There was a silence on the other end of the line, followed by a sound I wish I could forget.
Po, po, po.
Alright, now that we've gotten to know who these monsters are, let's take a look at what they are and what they can do. It is intentionally unclear exactly what Slenderman really is. He is possibly a god or an interdimensional being. One predominant theory is that he's a tulpa, or thought form, an entity created by human imagination made stronger the more someone believes in it. You could think of it like an imaginary friend becomes real because you believed hard enough that they were real. More specifically, Slenderman would be considered an egregore, or an entity created from the collective or shared beliefs of many people. Contrary to popular depictions, his presence doesn't actually interfere with electronics. Rather, his distorted faceless appearance captured on film is believed to be his true form. In person, he's actually reported as having a visible face, and is otherwise seen as a normal human being with a charismatic demeanor to lure in his victims. Interestingly, his suit is not an illusion and also has nothing to do with the modern fashion of today, as it's been indicated that he's dressed that way even centuries before such style was common. What is clear about him is his exact shape is subject to change, able to grow to enormous height, as well as sprouting branch-like tendrils from his own appendages. Useful for both navigation and combat. These tendrils can be as thick as tree trunks, sharp as knives, and can extend across an entire forest. Many tales in the original mythos describe Slenderman coming under fire from various firearms or other attacks, with all projectiles simply being absorbed into his body with seemingly no negative effect. The shape-shifting nature and mutable form supports the idea of him being a mental construct or interdimensional being, not restricted to the laws of the physical world around him. I believe the most logical draw is that Hachi is the spirit of a former human who, through extreme and wicked desire, has warped and changed over time, one that uniquely preys on children. Japanese folklore is well known for its share of powerful female spirits, like the Onryo or Yuri. While Hachi's story is of Japanese origin, I personally don't believe her to be either of these. Rather, I believe she more closely resembles a Preta of Buddhist mythology. Also called Higaki or Jinkaninki in Japanese, these are hungry ghosts which typically devour people or gross substances, but the cravings can be for virtually anything. In Hachi's case, it seems to be young children. In Thailand, these spirits are known as Pret, and are said to be abnormally tall and wear circular discs on their heads, known as gongcha, an object similar to a saw blade. Many of Hachi's characteristics indicate her appearance is some sort of illusion, as it's said that everybody sees Hachi slightly differently. One report was of an old woman in a kimono, while another was of a young girl in a funeral shroud. Regardless of appearance, her size and voice is the only constant. Despite always appearing feminine, Hachi's voice is notably deep and masculine, possibly a product of her incredible size. Additionally, Hachi is shown to be able to mimic the voices of loved ones well enough to be indistinguishable, indicating she can alter more than just her appearance. While normally depicted as merely standing menacingly, Slenderman is more than capable of rapid movement, enough to catch up to a speeding car. Additionally, Slenderman has shown the ability to teleport between locations or otherwise phase through obstacles, a technique that is sometimes termed slender walking. Since a psychic medium was able to make contact with his kidnapped victims and subsequently summon him, it can be surmised that the Slenderman normally resides within some sort of spiritual plane, and this is likely where he travels through when teleporting. While some iterations of her story describe her with sluggish or careful movements, Hachi has shown no trouble keeping up with a speeding vehicle. Additionally, Hachi managed to move from outside of a window to the other side of a bedroom door in mere moments, indicating either incredible speed or teleportation. With that said, Hachi is said to be fully corporeal and cannot pass through solid matter. Lastly, Hachi is apparently unable to leave the main island of Japan, either due to limitations in her mobility or in the tracking of her targets. Slenderman has many feats that demonstrate a significant destructive capability. In the deep sea excursion, it's implied Slender damaged or destroyed a bathyscaphe, which is built to withstand pressures of up to 16,000 pounds per square inch. In the Henderson horse farm incident, several horses were torn apart, and at least one was reduced to nothing but blood spread across multiple rooms. Because of how blood and viscera dry and decay over time, this feat had to have been performed in a relatively short time frame, requiring a tremendous amount of force, and not the most straightforward thing for me to put a number on. He hunted and killed a special forces team that was trained to handle him, induced a heart attack in a young, healthy man, induced seizures and convulsions in multiple victims, instantly killed multiple people upon approaching, and could effortlessly open people up to rummage through their organs. These feats suggest they're performed using some form of telekinesis rather than physical strength. There's a wide range of ways psychic abilities are depicted and often explained across fictional media, but for this analysis, I'll be looking at how PK is seen through real-life parapsychology. At the turn of the 20th century, American writer and researcher of unexplained phenomena, Charles Fort, made significant work in pioneering what we know today as paranormal research. In Fortean research, abilities such as psychokinesis, pyrokinesis, and telepathy were known as wild talents. Fort believed these abilities stemmed from the brain externalizing and projecting its signals outside the body. Slenderman's many abilities are consistent with these wild talents, and it stands to reason that he operates the same mechanically. The energy he draws from as a thought form or similar should as well, if we accept the idea of him being a tulpa. It is believed that the maximum output of a person's psychic abilities is the same as that of their physical body. That is simply the max that their brain can output. This is backed up by multiple demonstrations of psychics easily performing tasks they could achieve by hand while struggling with larger tasks such as moving heavy weights. The lifting strength of peak athletes ranges from 0.2 to 0.5 metric tons. Ordinary people also show to perform at this level when put under extraordinary circumstances, such as lifting a car off someone who's in trouble. Therefore, the max PK output of a well-practiced psychic should also approach these levels. This line of thinking is also compatible with the concept of slender sickness. Symptoms of slender sickness include physical fatigue, memory loss, coughing, and nosebleeds. It can be assumed that sufferers of slender sickness are having their brain's energy siphoned to add to Slenderman's own power. It's impossible to calculate exactly how many people Slenderman might be drawing from, by how much, and what reserves that strength is added to. However, he's shown to be present all over the world and has been for centuries. Missing 411 disappearances are also consistent with these attacks, so there is reason to believe he's responsible for tens of thousands of deaths, if not more. Purely looking at human disappearances in the US alone. Breaking the fourth wall. The original Slender game was downloaded over 2 million times within its first month of release. I'll use this figure to make the math a little simpler. Using the earlier logic, sealing the combined psychic energy of 2 million people would equate to a peak physical strength of those 2 million people combined, which averages to about 600,000 kilojoules, or 0.14 tons of TNT, about enough energy to destroy a small building. Another incredibly common wild talent the Slenderman demonstrates is pyrokinesis, or the generation and control of flames using one's mind. The Fear Dub case mentions how scorch marks resembled Slenderman's own tendrils, suggesting the flames spread and burned only where Slender deliberately chose. The most interesting case for our discussion is the 1993 Lynn County house fire, in which first responders reported an all-blue blaze. Ordinary flames can turn blue in color if they exceed 2,500 to 3,000 degrees Celsius. Certain chemicals can also alter a flame's color to blue, notably sulfur. However, the description of them being strangely cool suggests the flames were supernatural. The flames being described as cool may suggest energy for the heat is additionally leached from the surrounding areas at an extreme rate, burning targeted areas while leaving nearby areas much colder. This would be consistent with how Slender's strength is leached from other victims. If the flames are a product of pyrokinesis, they should follow similar energy restrictions as his strength. 1 Celsius heat unit requires 1,899,000 joules of energy. Converting 600,000 kilojoules of energy into Celsius heat units gives us 315,939 Celsius, or 568,722 Fahrenheit. The surface of the sun is just under 10,000 Fahrenheit. In theory, Slenderman should be capable of creating a flame more than 50 times hotter if he expended all his energy all at once. These temperatures are, of course, well within the range for creating blue flames. And as a minor addition, Slender has also shown manipulation over weather phenomena, creating fog or rain to hide himself in, or to hinder his targets. Various spirits of Japanese myth like Onryo have shown great destructive power, such as creating earthquakes or hurricanes or similar. However, these feats are unique to a select handful of vengeful entities that are not common among all spirits. And as discussed earlier, it's very possible that Hachi could be something entirely different. So perhaps there's another way we can estimate her power without knowing exactly what Hachi is. So Hachi was able to break out of a trap that used 4 Jizo statues to contain her. Normally, only 1 would be needed, sometimes even less. The idea is that this kind of talisman invokes a guardian deity to prevent passage from a particular direction. This trap has a statue corresponding to each of the 4 cardinal directions, allowing the guardian deity in question to watch over the target indefinitely. In this case, that deity was Jizo, a bodhisattva, or someone who becomes a Buddha in the afterlife. It is unclear whether Hachi caused the 4th statue to break on her own, or if it was an accident from outside forces, but that's irrelevant for this discussion. What is clear is that 3 statues weren't sufficient in keeping her contained. Hachi needing all 4 statues indicates it required Jizo's full power to contain her. So let's take a closer look at this Jizo character to see how powerful he is. So Jizo is the protector of children and their souls, and is the guide across the Sansu River. Known as the River of 3 Crossings, this is the river that must be crossed by all souls before they can enter the afterlife. Souls are forced to choose one of 3 paths, depending on their karma in life: a bridge, a shallow ford, or a deep trench filled with snakes. Of the 3 paths, infants and children must generally cross at the ford, which is still too great for them because they're only children. They therefore spend eternity stacking rocks along the river bank until they build a little bridge to cross with. However, resident Oni will knock the rock piles over, forcing them to repeat this until Jizo eventually rescues them. The bridge across the Sansu River takes 7 days to cross by foot. Assuming the bridge is completely flat and there are no breaks, 168 hours of continuous walking would stretch to 420 miles. Assuming at least half the 7-day journey is spent resting, eating, etc., and that the bridge is not perfectly flat, the Sansu River should still be at least 200 miles across. The ford is shallower than the 3rd path, but still too deep for children to cross on their own. So I'll estimate its depth to be about 1 meter. 1 cubic meter of gravel is approximately 1,680 kilograms, or 1.68 tons. A 1 meter deep, 1 meter wide gravel embankment across 200 miles require approximately 540,000 tons of gravel. Therefore, the Oni here must be at least strong enough to push around 500,000 tons in order to completely break these embankments before completion. Jizo is likely stronger than these guys since they can't defeat him even with a numbers advantage. All of this is to say that Hachishakusama requiring Jizo's full effort to contain her, and she must be more powerful than the Oni that Jizo has no trouble dealing with. Whether as a measure of magic or raw strength, she must be within the same ballpark. Although her story never mentions any such destruction taking place, Hachi should have a strength capable of leveling buildings or greater. Across his many stories, one constant in Slenderman lore is that he's virtually indestructible, at least to everything people have managed to throw at him. Repeatedly, he's come under fire from guns of many calibers, including an instance where he appeared before several soldiers during World War II. Notably, military task force organized to neutralize him was completely unable to even harm him. One surviving operative at first questioned if his fog ability was some sort of defense mechanism, before later concluding, "I do not believe it feels any need for a defensive mechanism." There is one interesting instance in which someone was plagued with nightmares about the Slenderman, where they were able to resist this effect using rosary beads, suggesting that holy objects or personal faith can have some sort of effect against him. It is worth noting, however, that this particular individual wasn't a target of Slender and wasn't even directly aware of him. They only had the nightmares after a family member was taken. There's multiple reasons to believe Hachi may possess some immunity or resistance to fire, due to Japanese spirits being commonly associated with Nibi or Ikadama, or due to how Preta are often themselves constantly burning or producing flames from their own mouths. On a similar note, Pret wear their concha as a punishment that constantly cuts into their flesh, and many other hungry spirits display cursed forms with splitting skin or other injuries. With that in mind, such a spirit would be accustomed to this level of physical abuse, and would otherwise be able to resist or regenerate from it. In terms of weaknesses or limitations, Hachi was, of course, able to be trapped by the Jizo statues. Similarly, non-specific statues and charms of Buddha were able to keep her at bay, as well as Orishio, or sacred salt. These items have not actually been shown to harm her, only stop her from reaching her targets. Additionally, the salt turning black in her presence indicates that they may only work temporarily. So this match is pretty close, like, a lot closer than I had originally thought. The ambiguous nature of both combatants requires a number of assumptions to reach a solid conclusion. Hachi is likely much stronger physically, but Slender has a much wider range of attacks and abilities. These attacks may fall short against Hachi due to her unique defenses, such as a possible resistance to fire and lacerations, but ultimately, I believe Slender holds an advantage overall in mobility and range and can wear Hachi down over time. Hachi's stat advantage means very little if she has no way of seriously harming the Slenderman. Personally, I think it's moot to try and find definitive strength gauges for either one, as both characters are meant to be unknowables, things you're not supposed to understand fully. They require so many assumptions to be made without many definitive feats to work with. With that said, Slenderman is at least the one who does have some direct feats, like dismembering horses, surviving volleys of gunfire, and crushing a submarine. Hachi doesn't have anything nearly like this, and I'm required to fill in the blanks just to make the fight more even. Moreover, Slenderman potentially manipulating space means he could separate Hachi into multiple pieces without needing to overtake her durability, and this isn't the kind of attack that she would be able to heal or regenerate from. Let's also not forget that Slenderman's fire, in all likelihood, burns hotter or at least differently than ordinary fire. A Pratt's possible resistance isn't a total immunity, and flames approaching the heat of the sun would certainly prove overwhelming. What it ultimately comes down to is Slenderman demonstrates multiple ways of harming Hachi, while she doesn't show any meaningful ways of harming him back. Even attacks of overwhelming strength may not be enough to actually injure him, let alone destroy him. Both seem to demonstrate selective invisibility, in which they are able to be seen by their targets but no one else. Since they're targeting each other in this scenario, I don't see this as being a major factor. The Slenderman holds a distinct advantage in mobility, range, special attacks, and defense. I have no doubt that the winner of this match would be the Slenderman. I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I did making it. You can show your support by giving the video a like or sharing it with a friend. And if you really want to help out, you can become one of my supporters on Patreon and help me make videos more often. Anything you could do would greatly help out, make it easier for me to make more of these in the future. Until next time, this has been Zenanaki, signing off.